have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI? You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. We don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky. At the time, they were dependent on solar power, and it was believed that they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun. Throughout human history, we have been dependent on machines to survive. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony.
I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Iron Hands. Defibrillators are vital life-saving devices, though often portrayed very erroneously in movies. Defibrillation is used when a heart is behaving arrhythmically, shocking it into essentially resetting and getting back on the rhythm. It can't revive a dead person, but it can save people from some forms of cardiac arrest. The process of defibrillation was first demonstrated by scientists in 1899, though it wasn't until the 1930s that practical models were made and used in actual medicine. Even then, it was only possible if the chest was open during surgery. Closed chest defibrillators were made in the 1950s, and in the decades since then spread from hospital rooms to ambulances to being common around the world. Iron Hands is a mechanical, futuristic version of Hariyama, the third generation sumo wrestler Pokemon. The overall body shape is similar, but the Pokemon is metallic, with LED lights and glowing panels. The large hands are covered with electrical padding to be used as defibrillators. Modern-day Hariyama has a signature move called Smelling Salts in English, but called Resuscitate in Japanese. Using salts to rouse a knocked-out sumo wrestler is traditional, but modern techniques are more reliable. Pokemon Scarlet tells us, "It is very similar to a cyborg covered exclusively by a paranormal magazine. The cyborg was said to be the modified form of a certain athlete." And of course we can read this magazine. Enigmas of Paldea number 5. Iron Hands, secretly a cyborg? This being's name comes from the one given to an iron-handed entity in the mysterious Violet Book. It is said to have fists that move independent of its body, and to be capable of throwing large, fast-moving vehicles. A leading theory holds that Iron Hands was once an athlete who became mortally wounded, but was kept alive by being made into a cyborg. Why it so strongly resembles Hariyama, however, remains unanswered. And Pokemon Violet just tells us, "This Pokemon shares many similarities with Iron Hands, an object mentioned in a certain expedition journal." The name Iron Hands leaves little to the imagination. The Japanese name is Tetsu no Kaina, literally Iron Arms. All of this reminds me of Iron Fist and the King of Iron Fist tournament, or Tekken in Japanese. As we've now had a literal Pokemon Tekken game in Pokken, which is called Pokemon Tekken in Germany, I can easily imagine this Pokemon at least partially being a deliberate homage. Tekken even features multiple robotic and cyborg characters. It doesn't feature a robot sumo wrestler though real-life robot sumo is popular in Japan, kind of like a slightly less destructive version of Robot Wars. I don't know if Iron Hands would win in Robot Wars, Robot Sumo, or the King of Iron Fist. It isn't massively popular in competitive Pokemon battling, but it is seen almost too much in multiplayer raids. With a high HP pool, it can use the move Belly Drum, greatly increase its attack at the cost of its health, and then easily heal up again, going on to obliterate the raid boss. Robots, like all technology, have the potential for good or ill. Apart from factories and assembly lines, the most common real-life applications of robots today are in rescue operations and in warfare, the very best and the very worst of humanity. A Pokemon that can wreck you with sumo slaps, or save you with defibrillation, is kind of a perfect analogy. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon is composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Writing, producing, and editing is by Luke Summerhays, while funding is provided by lovely listeners at patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. Next up are Iron Horns and Frigibax, so if you have thoughts about those or any other monsters, hit me up with a DM or an email to lukelovespkmn@gmail.com. If you like this podcast, please rate and review wherever you're listening, or tell a friend. And if you want to hear more Pokemon chatter from me, come by twitch.tv/lukelovespkmn most Saturday nights from 9 PM UK time. Even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Iron Hands. And remember, I love you too.